My name is Bill Baird. I'm retired from UC Berkeley, where I work with Walter Freeman in physiology on attention mechanisms in the brain, mental images in cortex of animals, and I worked in math and dynamical systems theory with Noel Hirsch, and on models of attentional mechanisms where parts of the brain oscillate at different frequencies and come into synchrony in order to communicate, and then there are cycles, sensory motor cycles, which make the inner stream of experience, which we'll talk about at the end. So, things are turning around in science. Even Christoph Koch, one of the famous materialist neuroscientists, is starting to talk about panpsychism as a possibility. The whole premise of the present theme of this conference is that perhaps awareness is too fundamental to be described except as being itself. So, in this approach that I'm taking now, I've been in spiritual work for quite a while with the Dunhart School, Hamid Ali, and I love Rupert Spira and Francis Lucille's work. And Vaida is a very simple way to state spiritual issues. It gets much more complicated in Dunhart. Okay, so the idea is to get a scientific understanding of a spiritual worldview, just like any teaching in spirituality has words, language, concepts to orient you. So there's a story, there's a narrative, as well as a continuous need to look at your immediate experience. For Rupert, that is to see your own awareness of awareness. So I want to talk about a new approach to quantum gravity, to quantum cosmology, how to fit quantum mechanics and gravity, large-scale Newtonian universe together. And basically, it takes the stuff of which everything's made of, instead of being a unified field, which is a concept that can't be directly compared with experience, to an actual physical phenomena, which is an experience that we see through our senses in the outside world, namely superfluidity is the phenomenon. If you cool helium atoms down to very low temperature, as we're about to watch here, they go into a very strange state where atoms cannot be told apart. It becomes this quantum soup, and it seems to exhibit things like sentience. And that's what you're looking for in the fundamental stuff that everything's awareness made of. If you think awareness is fundamental, then this is an attractive model because it's fully entangled, fully coupled, fully coherent. It has no structure in it. You can't tell one atom. Everything's identical in there, and it has frictionless quantum properties, and it appears at large scale in the macroscopic world as we're about to see. So let's see if I can make this work. Please go. Yeah, there we go. Okay, what they've got is a beaker here being cooled down. It's been cooled as low as it can get with helium, very close to 3 degrees Kelvin. And then now it's getting excited because they're reducing the pressure, which further drops the temperature. And right now it just went still. And here's when it's gone through the transition. It's no longer a classical fluid, it's pure quantum stuff. The stuff that everything's made of, and you'll see the properties of it here. It can reject impurities, like a biological organism does. It sort of knows itself that way, in a sense, in the way that Rupert Spira would ask you to know yourself by looking inside at your own awareness. And it shows in here, it'll go, here's a beaker, and it can go through atom-sized, helium atom-sized holes in the bottom of the beaker after the transition. So here is it starting to leak out the bottom, on this side after it just went still again. And the stillness, of course, now here it is, it goes up the sides of the beaker and down. It's frictionless, and somehow it knows that it can reduce its energy by going around the side like that and going down. So that's the kind of phenomena of sentience that we're trying to talk about here. So, okay, so superfluid vacuum theory is a developing quantum cosmology. Let's look at, so given this fundamental stuff, the scientific story, of course, is the Big Bang. So let's look at that, and, okay, gotta jam along here. So the idea is, let's see, here's my clicker again. Okay, right. Okay, so here's the Big Bang. Within 1 second, all this has gone on. There's this huge inflation in the early part. First, everything is a quantum soup. It's like a superfluid. Nothing could be distinguished. It's pure field, it's pure stuff, whatever that is. Then within a very short time, it starts to form pattern and structure. So we have pure radiation, and then we start getting nucleons, so forth, still mostly energy, and after about 3 minutes we're getting helium atoms. So we're getting nuclear things, not electrons yet. So after that first 3 minutes, boom, it takes 300,000 years to generate the whole rest of the macroscopic universe from the energy flux. And here we are now, we've got atoms. This is serious structure here. Complicated things that interact in complicated ways that give us chemistry, and also the large-scale universe. We have our quasars and supernovas and so forth that generate the carbon that's needed for life and so forth. So then way out here, 15,000 million years, we start getting life and so forth on planets, especially adapted for it, and especially in water. So, okay, and then in that, of course, through biological evolution, we get human beings. And so this is an evolution of consciousness in this view. Consciousness is fundamental. It starts to form all these things, and it even forms vast molecular ecologies of life, including human beings. And human beings then add a second thing, which is symbolic language. The basis of cultural evolution, evolution by ideas, is extremely rapid. That's why we're taking over and momentarily destroying the planet. We hope we do better than that soon. Okay, so let's see. It's going to have to rip. Okay. Let's see. Actually, right. Let's get back here. So one of the things I wanted to say about this, all the way through this, as soon as you start getting form, in the superfluid, for example, if you rotate the superfluid, it forms these quantized vortices. They start to form structures. So now it starts to differentiate itself. It's got energy differences. Then you have entanglement. If one atom changes its energy state so that it's distinguishable from the other atoms, it's suddenly entangled with all the other atoms because it has the same quantum numbers, the same descriptions as all the rest of them, but it has a special distinguishable characteristic. And it's now coupled in all the other variables that it's in the same, but it's distinguishable. And that's what you need for computation, as we'll talk about later. And so that's how form creates itself. Let's see. Okay, so let's talk about quantum biology. So the idea is that as form occurs, the pure structures, there's a thing in spirituality called direct knowing. Science knows by measuring, testing, predicting. That's the content of its ideas. An idea is never the thing it describes. So I can't say that the unified field is conscious. I mean, I can make that language statement, this mix, but this is a physical phenomenon, the superfluid. So in a way, you could say that the superfluid is a model of what awareness might be, fundamental awareness. And then you can make this go through, not succeeded yet, in mathematics, generate space-time and all of cosmology, as well as life. Now you get a very similar phenomenon to superfluidity in molecules, in biomolecules. If you remember any chemistry, there's a thing called a benzene ring, which is a set of carbons all connected together. The famous guy that had a dream about a snake eating itself when he realized the structure of the carbons were all in a ring. Well, there's a set of electrons above and below, clouds of electrons. Electrons are similarly in a soup, like a superfluid. It's distinguished, it's different, but mathematically it has similar qualities to the Bose-Einstein condensation state that the superfluid is. Namely, delocalization. You can't say where the electrons are. There's a soup of electrons. They're all intimately connected. So this is, in a way, a window of the micro world brought up macroscopically in biology, just like the stuff in the beaker was a way, by cooling it down, to bring that up so we can see it in the microscopic world on our scale. Inside of molecules, there are, what we're discovering now in quantum biology and photosynthesis, in quantum sensitivity of sensory receptors, audition, vision, single photon, we can be aware of that. And in energy transduction and photosynthesis, probably in respiration and the Krebs cycle. In photosynthesis in particular, there's lossless transmission of the energy of the photon across a large patch of molecules. And they're in an oscillatory harmony that sets up the electronic transitions between the locations that the excitatory energy produced by the photon takes, so that it's lossless. It doesn't get dispersed into thermal energy and lost in heat. It's perfect transmission to where a molecule then gets broken apart for creating sugars, which turns into food and gets burned. So so another example is an enzyme, for example, that's meant to cut DNA in two separate places, and has to do it simultaneously to get an accurate cut. It wants to snip out a piece. And just in the last femtoseconds, very tiny amount of time, of the reaction, the two parts of the molecule become entangled, which is like the delocalized electrons on one end entangled with the electrons at the other end, the two parts that are snipping. So Stuart Hameroff and Penrose, who have had this model of consciousness in the brain for a long time, as it being at a molecular level, they say well, let's see. Okay, so there's this interaction. There's coordination by the quantum non-local entanglement connections within things in a superposition. So molecules here, this is a microtubule. Microtubules form the cytoskeleton in neurons and all cells. And think of a paramecium or an amoeba. And the amoeba spreads out this way. It's microtubules building themselves that way. It's the real-time decision action system for a single cell. And computing capacity, its memory capacity, its computing capacity is enormous. And they have recently measured a microtubule and found conduction bands in it consistent with quantum superposition. And, and the idea that they've been working for a long time that's coming out to be true with actual data now, is that these little subunits, these little tiny, see these rows of things along the molecule? Here they are illustrated more schematically. Each of these guys is composed of two pieces, like there's the black piece and then there's the white piece, and they can be in different configurations. It's a little more complicated than that. has to do with the groups buried inside this thing, kept away from the heat in the water, and their electronic states, and again the vibrational states of this whole system. So it's like energy is used to pump the vibrational states. Quantum mechanics only allows and tunes for particular reactions to happen, and it allows the precision and fidelity of replication that allows biology to be life. Okay, so in this case, it's not just two ends of an enzyme that are entangled and acting in concert, in coordination, but this thing is pumped, again, happens periodically in their theory. There's a stage where it goes into superposition, and so it can be, here's a superposition of states that could be, oh no, here's the superposition. Here it is in particular states. Some guys are in the dark state, other guys are in the white state, these little C things here. So here it is, and this whole area is going into superposition. It's a mix of two states. In fact, it's a mix of a whole set of possible on and off states, a huge number. This is a tiny piece of one microtubule, and it has all these subunits around it. We're just looking at one side of it. So here it is, goes into superposition, and it's in the unknown, and it's fully connected with the entire universe right there in that superposed state, highly sensitive to the condition of the brain that sets up the possibilities for this, and for the enormous number of possibilities. And one of these possibilities falls out by decoherence. It builds into this state, and then it gets to be too much for it by quantum gravity and Penrose's theory, and then all of a sudden it condenses. We used to call it a collapse, but in decoherence theory, it's not like those other possibilities disappeared. They got mixed up in the general, very complicated phase relationships of everything across the universe. Okay. So these things are connected to chemical synapses and so forth, and they're in a position to compute all kinds of things. Think of the complexity of behavior of the paramecium. Hunts for food, does a lot of things you do, sex, everything. And it does it all with single cell. And it's not the nucleus and so forth, because that's too slow for real-time interaction in the world. Okay, so let's see. So I'm just about done here. Now we want to say, I've been thinking of this for a long time, that a possible model for an idea of what a soul could be. There's no soul in the Vita exactly. It's all pure awareness. But not so in Buddhism and so forth. Certainly in Christianity, but okay, so the notion is that the entanglement structure that supports all these chemical, these quantum molecular computations inside a cell that allow it to live with high efficiency. You could think possibly of the entanglement structure as existing independent of the dissipation. So possibly when an organism dies, when you die, when a cell dies, there's a template entanglement structure within the entire universe, quantum, what's the Akashic field. People love that notion that everything, all the history of everything is there at once. It's a beyond space-time notion too, which is true for the superfluid as an absolute background to all form. So in addition to that, for awareness, for us, moment to moment with language running on our head and so forth, here's this is a rough model of a brain, that work I did about, here's motor areas in the front of the brain. This is the motor part in red, blue is the sensory part, and these areas communicate back and forth up here. If you have an idea about how you're going to move your arm, that produces a sensation of what it feels like to move that arm. You're mirroring yourself This is an error mirroring system if you want. And you can run language up here with a little bit going down to primary sensory areas. I'm indicating the insula, which is where all your internal world is represented, your motivational states, feeling states, including states of love, etc. And the idea is when you're really in the present, your attention is strongly down here in the immediate present of what you're feeling, say. In this particular case, there's also vision and so forth. And because you're at a rapid rate going into these superposition states, in that superposition state, you're I would say connected to the Schrodinger equation, which is just, Schrodinger equation says everything is just a superposition of wave-like stuff. There's no particles in it, in a way, without this collapse idea. So it's very difficult how to figure it to get from the Schrodinger equation to the classical world. And that's what all the foundation theory and quantum mechanics is about these days. And Chris Field's point of view is that there's no boundaries. There's no boundaries. All the boundaries we create in the mind. There are no boundaries in quantum mechanics. You cannot define a system and a subsystem, which is the way science is done. We make the boundaries, and then we get information from the boundaries we make. But they don't actually exist in the world any more than the ideas like an atom exist. An idea is an idea. It's not an actuality. Okay. And basically, you're plugged in extrasensorily to the entire universe. As the Schrodinger equation would have it, a fully entangled universe. And so this is how you are able to sense through your local window, your large-scale macroscopic, large areas of the brain, at least primary sensory areas, go into this superposition at the molecular level. So all this stuff up here, the neuron level, then the neural population level, then the cortical level, then the behavioral level that comes out of you, all of that in this idea is a big lever arm projected out of the real computation which is going on at the molecular level. And Hameroff and Penrose, Hameroff's been saying this for many years, ever since I met him, way, way back. He didn't have the quantum thing on board at first, and then that came in with Penrose. But I think he's absolutely right. There's more intelligence in a single cell, some molecular computing system than in all the computers we ever built. And when we come to understand quantum computing for real, what's most exciting to me is when I understand a spiritual point of view of what a human being is. Namely that we compute using the entire universe. The entire universe computes us. And when we make a machine, we make it insensitive to the quantum unity. We make sure our logic gates don't get messed up with stuff coming in from outside. So we still serve as the soul for our artificial creations. There's no machine that's ever going to replace a human being because it has no creativity. Gödel's theorem says that no formally defined system, which a computer is, or a set of natural laws also, can ever describe all the possibilities in the space of possibilities. So you can never get a lever arm, a handle on something that completely covers everything. There's always open stuff coming in from outside. Same boundarylessness idea as Chris is talking about, Chris Fields. Okay. So science can talk about what is consciousness. If you want to really know, just look inside. It's the closest thing to you. All of you that you know is aware. And it deals with difficult issues like beyond space-time. It's not easy to understand the math and so forth, but there are ways of thinking about all these things, and it's all one version of quantum gravity in the superfluid universe. So, all right, so I should quit. Thank you. Way over time here, but that's